This is where I normally put all of my books, but there's too much cat on there. Hey guys, it's Kaz here, aka Cats on Camera, and today I'm doing my July wrap up. And because of the gods of Booktube-A-Thon, I read 12 things in July. That's crazy. So first off, I read Written in Blood. This is by Nathan Bush. This is a self-published book. I got this to review, and unfortunately I gave it 2 stars. Honestly, I think that's a little bit generous, but I had to give 1 star because it was self-published, and that's awesome that someone's putting this much effort in. And 1 star for the premise that he's trying to create. So this is a murder mystery. These murders are going on and we're following the detective, and we also follow the murder. We have different points of view. This is a murder mystery, and let me just grab this little tab here. At this point in the book, I knew who the killer was. I'm like, oh, I think blah 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 is happening, and yeah. And I was right. So throughout the whole of the rest of the book, it just felt so hard to get through because there was some things in here that were so obvious what he was trying to do, trying to make it seem like foreshadowing, but it was just like smack in the face saying, look, this is happening, because I already knew who the killer was. And for a murder mystery that's got no mystery, it's not great. So yeah, I did put a full review of this on Goodreads. I'll link it below. I talked about all the other things that I didn't enjoy about this book and that I thought could have been done better. But yeah, it was really disappointing. I was hoping to like it. Although towards the end, right towards the end, like this one here, we got some more points from the killer, but actually doing stuff, because throughout the first part of the book it was just his inner monologue thoughts and following the detective, and it was just boring because I knew what was happening and it was so obvious what was going on. But towards the end, when we actually got to see the killer doing things, I did find that interesting, and it's a shame that Nathan Bush, the author, didn't put more of these sort of aspects in the rest of the book rather than right at the end. But yeah, and also the ending, it just felt like a total cop-out, the ending did. I felt like they could have talked about a lot of things towards the end and explained some things, but it was just so done. I was hoping to like it, but it just felt like a slog to get through, honestly. Again, I'll leave my full review below if you want to hear all of my other thoughts. It's a non-spoilery as well. Next up, I read Long Shot Saves the Marvel Universe. This is by Hastings, Kamagini and Cauldron Zarita. This was just a random one. I needed a palette cleanser. It's really small. I just needed something to read after I'd spent so long reading that book. Seriously, that took me so long to read that first book, which is another reason why I'm so surprised that I managed to get to 12, because that took like a quarter of the month. So yeah, I just needed a bit of a palette cleanser, something easy and fun to read just to get away from that. This is a superhero that I've never really heard much about. He's just really super lucky, anything goes his way. And this one, we go through different times, different periods, and we meet quite a lot of other characters from the Marvel Universe. I give this a 3 stars. It wasn't great, it wasn't amazing, but it was just something. I needed something. Here's a sort of artwork we can see, or you can see the Hulk there, so you can see that different characters are brought in. Next up, I read The Raven King by Nora Sakovic, and yes, finally, something good this month. 5 stars. 5 stars. So good. Read this series. This is the second book in the All for the Game series. The first one is The Foxhole Court. Read this. Basically, this story follows our main character Neil, who has gone through a lot in his past. We find out bits and pieces as the story goes along. And in the first book, he's scouted for this Xe team. Xe is a made-up game in here. It's great. Recommend reading it. I want Xe to be a real game because it's really fun to read about, so I want to be able to watch it as well. Basically, the story is about this team, and we meet all these different characters, and there's the Xe is a really main part of it. And in this book we find out so much more about the team and about different things, and it's really good, but also trigger warnings for like everything. So yeah, if you can't read about things that are dark, then don't give this a go. but if you can, then definitely do. Next up, I read Magnus Chase and the Swords of Summer by Rick Riordan. This one is the first in the Norse mythology, and yeah, I gave this one a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. All of the side characters on here were really great. We get to see different worlds as well. You get all the things you'd expect from Rick Riordan books. You get gods that are a bit silly, that are a bit naive or a bit over the top. And it's just a really enjoyable book. This obviously follows Magnus Chase, and he has a sword that can talk. I mean, what else do you need from a book? And the last week in July was Booktube-A-Thon, and I read 8 books in that, so that's crazy. I'll get into them now. The first one I read for Booktube-A-Thon was Boyfriends with Girlfriends. This is by Alex Sanchez. It's the last Alex Sanchez book that I hadn't read, so now I've read all of them and got all of them. Definitely recommend him as an author. But this one is probably one of my least favourite books of his. I gave it 3 stars. This follows several different characters. We follow Lance, who is gay but he's only ever fooled around with some boys, he's never had a proper relationship. We follow Sergio, who is bisexual, who has had relationships with girls but only really fooled around with boys. We follow Lance's friend Ali, who has only ever been into boys, but she finds a connection with this other girl and she's wondering what that means. And then the other girl is Kimiko, who is best friends with Sergio, who is a lesbian and she's only ever liked girls. So yeah, there's a lot of different things going on. There's a lot of different rep. We've got bisexual, lesbian, gay, and then maybe somebody who's pansexual. So it's good in that terms, but I felt like the story just started way too quickly. We didn't really have a feel for the characters. It was just straight away, it was them meeting each other. Oh yeah, side note, I'll put my vlog for Booktube-A-Thon down below. I vlogged throughout the whole week and put it together. It's my first ever vlog I've ever done, so check that out if you've got like 20 minutes to spare because it's really long. But yeah, next up I read Runaways, Volume 2, Teenage Wasteland, and this is by Brian K. Vaughan, Adrian Alfonso and Takeshi Miyawaza. This one I really enjoyed. The first volume I liked, but I felt like it was just getting to know the characters and getting into the story, but this one, we're there, we know what's going on, and a lot of crazy stuff happens in here and it's really enjoyable. And I was genuinely like, oh what? At one point out loud when something happened. So yeah, this is really good. I gave this one 4 stars. It's like a middle grade graphic novel. It's basically about a group of kids that find out that their parents are supervillains and what to do about it. This is sort of artwork in here, quite simple, nice bold lines and colours. Next up I read The Sigh by Marjane Satrapi. This is the same author that wrote Persepolis. I've not read that one, but it's a big one on Booktube, so you may have heard of it. This one, I didn't actually read it on my Kindle. I read it at the library because I was helping out volunteering for this summer reading challenge for the kids. And there was like an hour when nobody came in, so I just randomly picked up a book and gave it a read. This one is about a woman and she has to go through all these different trials to try and find something. I don't want to give too much away, but there's a prince and there's different trials. It was actually quite, it was quite an interesting read. I give this one 3 stars. I did enjoy it, but it wasn't like amazing. Next up, I read The Sky is Everywhere by Jandy Nelson. This one is about our main character Lenny, who is going through kind of a hard time because her sister died recently, and we meet this new guy that's moved into town. It's a contemporary, of course there's a new guy that's moved into town. His name is Joe Fontaine and he's perfect. Everybody at the school is like, oh my god, Fontaine. So yeah, you get it. It's about Lenny and Joe, Lenny and her granny, Lenny and her sister and her sister's memory, Lenny and Toby, who is her sister's boyfriend, who's obviously also going through the loss. And it's a really great story. I really enjoyed it. I cried, of course, I love crying at books, but it made me cry quite a bit. And I give this one a 4 stars. Next, I read Warm Bodies by Isaac Marion. This one, I'd seen the film ages ago, but this one is quite different to the film. This one is about the main character R, who is a zombie, and it's all in his head, what he's thinking, but obviously he can't say it out loud because he's a zombie. It's interesting. but also I gave it 3 stars. There's just something lacking there. The beginning was good, the ending was good, but I felt like the middle ground, there could have been something more there. I guess check it out if you want a different perspective on zombies. Next up, I read Death Note Volume 2. This one is by Sugami Ohba and Takeshi Obata. I'm sure most people know what Death Note is about, whether they've read it, whether they've watched the films, whether they've watched the anime, whether they're looking forward to this weird American remake. Most people know what Death Note is, but if you don't, basically our main character, Light, gets this notebook, and when you write down a person's name in it, that person will die. You can write down how they die, or you can just write down their name and they'll die of a heart attack. And he's basically becoming a vigilante, and we follow him, and we also follow Elle, who is trying to capture whoever is doing this. Obviously I've only read to number 2, but it's super interesting. I gave this 4 stars. I have up to volume 7 in my possession, so I definitely need to read these soon and get the rest. Next up, I read Sweet Tooth. This is volume 1, Out of the Deep Woods by Jeff Lemire. This one I got because I'd heard a few people talking about it, but I didn't have any clue about what it was about, other than the fact that there's a guy with antlers. But I really enjoyed it. I gave this 4 stars. It's kind of like dystopian, sort of Mad Maxy. That's how it's described, and I can see why. And it's just a really great story, so definitely check this one out. This is a sort of artwork in here. Last but not least, I read Watchmen. This is by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. This one is one of those graphic novels that everybody has heard of. Everybody knows that it's great and they knows that you should read it, so I thought I should read this. It's a massive one compared to a lot of other things, but this is a enclosed story. And yeah, I did enjoy this. I gave it 4 stars. I feel like if I hadn't seen the film, which I saw years and years ago, I probably would have enjoyed it more because a few of the things I knew. I really enjoyed Dr. Manhattan's sort of chapter, which was chapter 4. I love the way that was done with the picture, and he can see all of the different things at the same time. So he's here, but he's also 20 minutes in the future, and he's also a year in the past. I thought that was really, really well done, the way it was written. So yeah, that was probably my favourite sort of contained aspect of the story, but overall great. Definitely check this out, as I'm sure everybody knows you should if you enjoy reading graphic novels. So it's like this. There's quite a lot of pictures, but there's also quite a lot of words in here, especially for a graphic novel. At the end of each chapter there's like quite a lot of writing. So there's like a page from a journal, or there'll be pages from an article. So compared to a lot of graphic novels, there is quite a lot of reading in here, but it does add to the story. So yeah, check this out if you haven't already. So there we have it, all of the 12 things that I read in July. This is crazy. I'm going to read nowhere near this much in August, but definitely a great reading month, as you can tell. It's kind of good that I had 2s, 3s, 4s and 5-star ratings in here, so it was very mixed, but very good nonetheless. Tell me down below what you read in July and whether you took part in Booktube-A-Thon, and if you did, then tell me down below how it went for you. Again, I've left my vlog in the description below. If that interests you at all to watch, then it's there. If this is your first video by me and you enjoy it, then please check out some of my others, and if you continue to enjoy them, then please subscribe. That'd be awesome. Anyway guys, I will see you in a few days with another video. Bye. If this is your first time seeing my channel, now how do I normally do this?